97% of the market, 80% of the shareholders, the equity shares are with institutional and pension investors, and their advice is followed 95% of the time.
That's essentially correct.
Wow, that's pretty big. That's pretty big. How much money are we talking about? And Ms. Minow was part of it all when she worked at ISS, is that right? The question wasn't for you, it's for Mr. Crane.
I understand that, but he doesn't know the answer, and I do.
Well, I wasn't asking you a question.
It is wrong. I did not allow
you might be able to do the consulting services.
Today's hearing exposed how just two companies, ISS and Glass Lewis, control 97% of proxy voting advice in the United States, influencing how over $20 trillion in shareholder votes are cast. These firms not only advise big investors on how to vote, but also sell consulting services to the companies they evaluate, a significant conflict of interest. Lawmakers say their recommendations often favor left-leaning causes, such as ESG and DEI, raising concerns about political bias, market dominance, and pay-to-play tactics. Who controls corporate America?
It's back. Now recognize the chairman of the full committee, Mr. Jordan, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Crane, what percentage of publicly traded equity shares are held by institutional investors and pension funds?
It's a very large percentage. I forget the exact number. It's north of 80, I believe.
80%? And because of that, most shareholder votes are cast through proxy voting because the shareholder can. Is that right?
That's exactly correct.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
And proxy advisors advise or recommend to the institutional investors and the pension funds how they're supposed to vote. Is that right?
That's correct.
And is their advice followed?
Pardon?
Is their advice followed? Is the proxy advisor's advice typically followed by the institutional investors and the pension funds?
It's absolutely followed, and in many cases, their shares are automatically cast by the proxy firms in line with those recommendations.
So, so the institutional investors and pension fund are doing exactly what the proxy advisors did tell them?
That's exactly correct, yes, sir.
Okay. And who are the two largest again, who we've been talking about?
ISS and Glass Lewis.
ISS and Glass Lewis. And how much of the market do they control?
97%.
97% of the market, 80% of the shareholders, the equity shares are with institutional and pension investors, and their advice is followed 95% of the time.
That's essentially correct.
Wow, that's pretty big. That's pretty big. How much money are we talking about?
Trillions of dollars of equities across the market.
5 trillion, 20 trillion, 30 trillion, how much are we talking?
I don't know the size of the market, but it's a large number of the equity markets in the United States.
My understanding is it's at least $20 trillion. And there's,
sounds right to me.
And the other side says, nothing to look at here. Nothing to look at here, really. That seems like there's a lot to look at there, and that's why we're having this hearing. Now, what kind of advice? So their advice is followed 95% of the time, 70% of the market, over $20 trillion. What kind of advice are they given?
It's advice on everything that comes before shareholders. It's how the company is run, how the executives are paid, the shareholder proposals that have been discussed. It's everything that comes before the shareholder base for a vote.
What kind of advice are they given in a political context?
We know that ISS, for example, recommended in favor of more than 80% of ESG shareholder proposals in 2023.
Pro DEI?
As a general rule, yes. Not 100% of the time, but yes, as a general rule.
Vast majority of the time?
I would say yes.
Okay, so kind of leaning to the left, right?
I think that's probably a fair characterization.
Their advice is followed 95% of the time. They have 90% of the market. 70% are they're given advice to, and it's always, almost always, left wing.
I think that's a fair characterization, yes.
Is that how you see it, Mr. Egan?
I have no reason for disagreeing with that.
What about you, Mr. Griffin?
I think that while it varies by year, and we've seen sort of swings with somewhat mirroring the political election cycle. Is
that an accurate picture? Is that an accurate framework?
Overall.
Okay. Now, but that's not the end of it, is it? Because it's even worse. Because this duopoly not only offers proxy advisor services, but consulting services as well.
That's exactly right.
Okay. So you can go consult with them before they give you the recommendations that are always followed. And if you don't consult with them, they might give you recommendations that in many ways harm the company and therefore harm the shareholders. Is that right, Mr. Crane?
It is, and we've seen that when companies get negative recommendations from the advice side, they'll immediately get a solicitation from the consulting side saying, hey, wouldn't you really like to have us help you out next year to avoid those negative recommendations from our friends down the hallway?
Yeah.
Pretty concerning fact pattern.
Will you pay the protection money? Will you pay the shakedown?
Exactly.
Holy cow, such a deal. Such a deal. And Ms. Minow was part of it all when she worked at ISS, is that right? The question wasn't for you, it's for Mr. Crane.
I understand that, but he doesn't know the answer, and I do.
Well, no, I wasn't asking you a question.
It is wrong. I did not allow
You might be able to do the
when I was at
consulting
ISS.
services and the recommendations.
I did not allow ISS to do consulting when I was
What does ISS do
president.
consulting now?
ISS does do
Well,
consulting now.
Shazam,
and
there
they're-
you have it. There you have it. My question, the way it works is the members get to ask the questions and to the people they want to give the answers. My question was to Mr. Crane. I appreciate you jumping in, Ms. Minow, and telling us that ISS does now offer consulting services in addition to the proxy advisor thing, which is the problem. Which is, well, not the full problem, but certainly part of the problem. Is that right, Mr. Crane?
I would agree with that, yes, sir.
And then you can even go maybe one step further and say on the platform, no competition's allowed, which I sort of get Ms. Minow's argument on the Amazon issue, I sort of get, but it's almost like they got this thing rigged from start to finish and it's two companies. And the other side says, nothing to look at here. Well, I think that's kind of ridiculous. And I appreciate the chairman and his work on this important issue. With that, I yield back.
Chairman yields back.